What up, Dankertarian land? I'm Matt Crum. I'm here with Bo Brown. What's going on?
What's going on, guys? Just got back from Michigan. Excited to get back to work.
How was it?
Michigan was a lot of fun. Got to meet the Catulist for the first time in person. He's just as fucking cool as I had imagined. Loved hanging out with him. Big shout out.
Did he trigger you at all?
No, he didn't trigger me at all. But I don't take things personally, Matt. We had a lot of really good debates though. We had a lot of really good discussions. Got to be there in the Libertarian Party of Michigan convention. Gonna have some cool content coming from that. Excited about it.
Glad to see you and Matt there at the making your
Dank.
marks up there. It's good.
House of Dank, dude. It was great.
That's sick.
Big shout out, real quick. Big shout out to Catherine Smith. Got to meet her for the first time, and Catherine, you are fucking awesome. You are the coolest person and the most cheerful person I think I've ever met. You were fucking awesome. I'm really stoked I got to meet you. I'm excited to come back up to Michigan and get to meet you again.
Fantastic. So we had essentially set up this interview with Marcos Miralles. He's the party chair in Florida, and this had gotten started from a previous podcast that we had with Paul Stanton. It was in episode 3, and there was a few pieces about Ryan Ramsey and some white nationalism and some white supremacy that was going on in that conversation. And I think, Ryan's camp and Marcos both were like, hey, like we want to be able to have our voice out there and take on some of these accusations. There seemed to be a little bit of a tiff, little beef going on between Marcos and Paul, and a big beef, I think, a long-standing beef probably with Ryan and Paul.
Well, Ramsey actually emailed us like hours after we posted the podcast. And he, like I said, he did email us, and he has committed to coming on. We are excited to get him on and talk with him and get his side of the story. And it was incredible that he emailed me so quick, because we'd intended to reach out to him like, hey, you want to respond, but it was quick. So he caught that with a quickness.
So what did you think of the conversation with Marcos?
I think it was a good conversation. Marcos is a really likable guy. He's very charismatic. He is clearly ambitious. He's really good at organizational principles and empowering others. He's a good leader, but I think his leadership style has unique vulnerabilities. He is a salesman, and I mean this in the Judd Weiss way of thinking, right? With his podcast with Tom Woods, and he is concerned with growth, and that is first and foremost on his mind. And I think that leaves him open to negative growth, to toxic growth. Now, having said that, I don't know if that's what Ramsey is doing. I don't. I do know, however, that there are some very serious charges of white nationalism against Ryan Ramsey. And I think that Marcos Miralles is kind of ignoring those claims and is being very dismissive of a lot of the personal stories of Libertarian Party of Florida members who have left because of what their claims against Ryan Ramsey and his sort of faction. And I think Marcos Miralles is not giving it the attention it deserves. And I think that's the reason for that is because Ramsey is so good at accomplishing the goal of growing the party.
Yeah, I mean, and I think it is interesting, Marcos' stance. He talks about in the podcast is, he's a Cuban American. He's been supported by Ryan Ramsey and some of these folks that are, being claimed to be racist and white supremacists and white nationalists. And I think that he's been charged to be those things. Like maybe I'm not sure if I'm throwing in an extra term there.
No, I mean he's absolutely been charged with those things. My question to you though is, does that argument hold water for you?
It depends on which one of those words that you're saying, maybe. And what you mean by that. Like, I think if your personal experiences with somebody is whenever you're saying there's a rift between people of race and you're dealing with that person and you are of different race, I think your personal perception is going to be a certain way. You know, you're going to feel a certain way about that, and that's going to be the lens that you look out of. And that's what I think is going on with Marcos. And I think Paul has a different lens that he's using right now.
Do you think that a white nationalist or someone who's charged with being a white nationalist?
I just dodged that question, didn't I? I didn't actually answer your question.
That's okay. That's okay. I didn't ask it very well. Do you think that someone who's charged with being a white nationalist, that working with other races is an argument for them not being a white nationalist?
No,
I'm not sure.
I mean, I think that you can. I think that people would feel confident in, if I was working, if I had a working relationship with somebody, and I would feel a little bit more comfortable in vouching for them. You know, if they treated me well, and
Sure.
from what I understand from Marcos, is that they've had. I mean, they obviously don't agree on everything. That's clear. But they've had a good working relationship, or an okay. I don't know if good is fair, but it's not tense.
Well, they've had success. I mean,
Yeah.
Marcos makes a point in the podcast where he looks at the numbers, and he's a numbers guy, so he can fall back onto that. And that's, I don't know, you speak for yourself. Do you prioritize the white nationalism charge over just the assertion that Ramsey makes that he is in fact a constitutional nationalist?
I mean, I think both are problematic, but I think that I am concerned about. I'm just going to wait for the social justice warrior cut comments. Go ahead and get your fingers ready. But I am concerned about the acceptance of bigotry in the Libertarian Party. And I have an internal conflict, and I have, I have dialogue about that. Is that, should we allow people to be bigots in leadership? These are questions that come up. As a libertarian, you can do whatever you want without hurting someone else. But as a Libertarian Party, and if you're in leadership of a party, and maybe you espouse the right policies, but you're a bigot at the end of the day, but you're just not going to violate the NAP. Is that acceptable? And these are some of the questions that I have and that I keep raising because I think that they're important. I think we keep glossing over them because of our Republican movement that's been coming into to the party, and and everyone else is going to say, oh, no, you're just part of the left moving in,
right?
But that's a different conversation.
Well, I mean, as a left libertarian, the reason that I kind of prioritize the nationalism part over the whatever ethno-nationalism part is that white nationalism is going to be really difficult to prove, right? It's going to be very difficult. Now, one can have intuitions, one can have a body of evidence, but it is unlikely in the extreme that someone who wants to achieve success in persuading a majority of people is going to claim white nationalism. That's going to be that's a difficult discussion to have. However, the nationalism part, I think, is pretty clear. It seems very clear to me that there's no space for nationalism within the Libertarian Party, as it's defined. I'm pretty sure it's Max Weber that defined it as a government monopoly on justified force. If that isn't antithetical to the Libertarian Party principles, I don't know what the fuck is.
But I guess the thing that would be interesting to explore there is if you are a nationalist, are you intrinsically a white nationalist, depending on how you're defining it in America? So we are a white country. You want to hold our values. Our values are European values. That's what you're espousing, Yeah. And if you claim nationalism, you want to preserve our culture. What culture is that you're wanting to preserve? And that's another thing that I think is interesting to explore.
I don't know, man. Like that question's hard for me to. It's difficult for me to contemplate because I'm not that culturally bright. Like I don't know. There are far more questions than answers when I contemplate those sorts of notions. But when it comes to just what words mean, right? If, nationalism has these attendant policies, Libertarian Party and our statement of principles has these attendant policy outcomes, and the consequences of nationalism is no different from white nationalism. The consequences of nationalism in and of themselves are going to be no different with ethno-nationalism of any stripe. That's why I think it's more important to talk about just the nationalism part, because that's something we can define and say, if you're this, we don't have any policies for you. Come in and vote for us, sure, but we're going to disagree all the time because of the policies we take. And Marcos Miralles, I think it was interesting, he rejected nationalism. He said he was a globalist. And I thought that was really important.
Yeah. I mean, he had a lot of interesting things that I think would be great to hear in some context, but he shot a little fire at Augustus Invictus.
He did.
He had some good comments in there, so I can't wait to let people hear and make your own decisions, and love to hear your thoughts in the comments. Love to hear your hate. Definitely love to hear some nice comments too, and feel free to donate to our Patreon account. If you want to support us and doing some of the things that we're doing. Bo is just out in Michigan at that the
state convention.
Yes, talk about that for a minute.
Yeah, I mean, the state convention was great. I think that is going to be a lot of fun to produce some of the content from that. I also think it is going to be really interesting because that's kind of where we're moving with Dankertarians, is covering these state parties and figuring out what's going on in the Libertarian Party and the Liberty Movement at that grassroots level, at that as local a level as we possibly can. And that means we're going to other states. So if you like that content, if you like what what we're putting out, it would be awesome. Just $1 a month at patreon.com/Dankertarians. You can help us. And I know that we are your favorite degenerates. So help us fund these libertine lifestyles. It would be awesome. And patreon.com/Dankertarians. We'd appreciate the support.
Yeah, and if you hate us and you enjoy hating, you can still fund us.
Yeah, it would be awesome.
Yeah, it would be fantastic. So,
if you love our content, let us know. If you hate our content, let us know, because that's the only way we're going to be able to, say fuck you in the best way we possibly can.
Yeah, and if someone could, if anyone knows how to get into that Soros funding, that would be great. Let us know. We won't ask for any more donations after that. So,
yeah, Coke money isn't coming either. That's why, in fact, I'm a left libertarian now. The Kochs never made good on their promises.
A little disappointing. I've tried to go to those rallies and didn't get a paycheck.
Not a cent.
All right, guys. Well, enjoy.
Thank you so much, guys. Peace.
Cheers.
Just jumping right in, speaking today with Mr. Marcos Miralles. Now, you were elected the chair, Libertarian Party of Florida, on May 6th. Is that correct? Got that day right?
I believe so, yeah.
Okay, right on. Talk to us a little bit about what your platform was, what it is you ran on to get elected for the chair.
It was multiple things. Mainly was to capitalize on everything that the Libertarian Party has been working on so far, and really bringing a results-based system and integrating it into the Libertarian Party of Florida. Back when I was vice chairman down in Miami-Dade County, I was able to get 5 Libertarians elected into community development districts, into council boards, things like that. These people are now in charge of hundreds of thousands of dollars and millions of people that they represent. And I thought that we needed that sort of representation within the state. So we started campaigning statewide. I traveled throughout the state, meeting people, shaking hands, kissing babies. And ultimately, the voters trusted me in representing the Libertarian Party as their spokesperson.
Right on. So your focus then is on outreach for candidates specifically. You're looking at electoral success?
Not necessarily. The chair is a position that has so many things to it. So my forte is candidates. I am able to recruit candidates as I've done here in Miami-Dade County. But there's so many other things to it. You know, a big thing about it is changing the image of what the Libertarian Party is. A lot of people, they hear the Libertarian Party and they think that we're heartless and that we don't care about anybody because we want to limit government, where on the contrary, we care about people so much that we want to limit government. So something that I wanted to do statewide, which August 13th, I'll be traveling up to Tampa to work on a homeless shelter that's happening over there, is really focusing on those that you can work with, setting differences aside, showing that you can get things done without the need of government, and showing that the libertarian solution is the best one to the problems that we're facing now in the state of Florida.
So are you partnering with other nonprofits and stuff like that? Is
Right.
that what you're? Okay, that's awesome.
Right. So we're encouraging those things. We want to create some sort of educational system. So I've done photography for big name companies, Victoria's Secret, Miss Universe, Ronald McDonald House Charities, things like that. So I'm going over there with my camera to record all of this, just to create a blueprint for others who wish to do the same, so we could engage our community and become leaders within it. Ultimately, we want to have libertarians represent others, but it's pretty crazy for me to think that we're going to do that by having a libertarian president or a libertarian governor. On the contrary, we have to start from the bottom up. You have to create leaders, and then those people will impact their community.
Exactly. I think like one of those things that was interesting was like, I mean, we always preach volunteerism, but how much are we doing?
Exactly.
And we need to be a role model for that, and just actually start practicing what we preach.
Absolutely.
You spoke a bit about the perception of the Libertarian Party and the way that we're seen by non-libertarians. That I think leads into a lot of the questions that I had, particularly regarding the Libertarian Party of Florida, right? So you kind of reached out to us along with Ryan Ramsey after we did an interview with Paul Stanton. And Paul Stanton made a lot of claims and some charges that I know you want to respond to. One of those charges is that the Libertarian Party of Florida is being infiltrated by white supremacists, is being infiltrated also by nationalists. Could you speak to that for just a minute?
For sure. They elected a Cuban American as chairman of the Libertarian Party of Florida. Okay, where is the white nationalism? Where is that? So Paul Stanton beat Augustus Invictus 76% to 24%. Where's the white nationalism? To me, it's an effort.
Well, one might argue that it's the 24% that voted for Augustus Invictus.
For multiple reasons. You can't just claim that exactly that 24% will be for white nationalism or whatever it is. I mean, it's irrelevant to me. That race does not exist, and either one of them that would have won would have been destroyed in a debate by Marco Rubio and Patrick Murphy. I don't think that they were strong candidates. I actually told them both that they made my job as vice chairman down in Miami as a spokesperson, as a person who speaks to hundreds of thousands of people weekly in English and Spanish media. They made my job a lot harder than what it could have been to present the ideas of liberty. And I said that to Paul. And I voted for Paul. I tell Paul, I voted for you. But I didn't necessarily see him as the best candidate, in my opinion, or Augustus. I don't see them as leaders. I don't. Paul in this moment is in a position of power, but not in a leadership position. Anybody could have that. A leader brings people together. A leader makes sure that people put their differences aside and join hands on our responsibilities of limiting government and maximizing our liberties, which is what we've been doing. In this last 2 months, we've recruited 27 candidates to run for local boards, which is unheard of in any other state. Since 2002, they didn't have these numbers in such a short span of time. We've incorporated other areas of Florida into the Libertarian Party of Florida as well. We're creating massive outreach on media and so many other things. So in my honest opinion, it is just a distraction. It's not a full representation of the people that are in the Libertarian Party of Florida. And I think it's very disrespectful for him to be saying those things when there are so many great people putting their time, their money, their effort into us, simply for personal reasons. And I'll tell you why it is personal. Ryan Ramsey and Paul Stanton were people that never got along. I know that Ryan tried to bury the hatchet with him in some way. But like I told you before, just like I'll shake hands with Paul, I'll shake hands with Ryan. I respect individuals for their ability of creating results and my same goal of maximizing our liberties. Just to clarify a little bit, to show you guys it is something personal, do you guys know the name of the campaign manager of Augustus Invictus's campaign?
Raquel?
Raquel Okiye. So
Okay.
Raquel Okiye was Augustus's campaign manager. Augustus and Raquel stopped speaking at the moment, but Raquel Okiye and Paul Stanton are working hand in hand for a candidate for Senate of Florida at the moment. So what this shows me, and as I've spoken to many people about this, both within the Libertarian Party and out of it, is that in politics, there are no friends and there are no enemies. In politics, there are just tools to advance personal agendas. Whatever Paul's personal agenda is not my concern. Whatever Augustus's personal agenda was is not my concern. My concern at the moment, as spokesperson of the Libertarian Party and as a leader, which I was elected to run this organization, is to focus on the candidates that we're running, to focus on the events, the city council races that are happening, things that are happening within our community that we could actually have an impact on, instead of libertarians debating who's more libertarian. That's nonsense to me.
But I do think there's a difference between debating whether or not one is more libertarian than the next individual.
I'd run them both. I'd run them both for city council or mayor or whatever it is. Those two that are debating who's more libertarian are a hell of a lot more libertarian than any Republican or Democrat that's in the race. And I would prefer them to represent me over any of the other parties.
Sure, absolutely. But that doesn't seem to be, at least from what I've read from the emails, that doesn't seem to be Paul's claim. Paul's claim isn't one of libertarianism, and Ramsey's counterclaim isn't one of libertarianism either. It's a claim of, from Ramsey's side at least, that Paul is a communist, and from Paul's side that Ryan Ramsey is a...
Words. They're just words. Focus on results. What results have either one of them brought in? And that's where I base my ability to lead. So at my current job, I'm the cluster sales manager for 2 Marriott properties over here in South Florida. I focus on results. I'm a numbers guy. Okay, I see people and what they're capable of doing, and back to being tools. You have to see people for their abilities and what they can accomplish. I am not here to look at, I don't have the time to look at anybody's personal life, and I'm not going to go into your Facebook, and I'm not going to see every article you've ever written, and I'm not going to watch every video you've ever made just to decide if it's okay for me to possibly work with you. It'd be a waste of both of your time and my time when we could focus on so many other things. That's the priority and the message within the Libertarian Party that we're pushing now. And for these last 2 or 3 months, what this is a transitional period. And like all transitions, some could be worse or better than others. And
I attempted to Stanton and went for what is essentially conduct of unbecoming, and if I read the email already, you believe that Robert's Rules of Order allowed you to do this, and then there was some clarification from your secretary, and that was rescinded. But I do want to talk a little bit about the conduct I'm my words there, not yours, but it seemed like the general claim was that both Stanton and Wendt were engaging in conduct unbecoming of a leader.
As for Wendt, we'll go with Wendt first. Wendt was somebody who harassed multiple people. Wendt was somebody who called the cops and called the hotel that we were having our last convention at to tell one of my supporters, in saying that one of my supporters, a volunteer for my campaign, was a terrorist. They ended up removing this guy's reservation. They alerted the police department. After we ended up finding out, we called the hotel and we clarified everything. And Joe actually decided to resign from the convention committee. After if I was to win, he said he would resign. He did resign. But before I was able to accept it, he retracted his resignation. As for the convention committee clears out after I become chair.
Sure.
So that's not necessarily a big issue. As for Stanton, as I've said before, my job is to be a spokesperson. I could be sitting here on this computer talking to you right now about so many other positive things that are going on within the state of Florida. But on the contrary, what ends up coming out and what makes us look worse as libertarians are claims from leaders within the party. But these aren't leaders. These are just people in positions of power with personal agendas, really. Trying to stay relevant. There's nothing else to it.
So is Ryan is he a leader right now in the state?
He is considered a part of the executive committee. He is a regional representative. He was voted to represent his area of Florida.
Yeah, I mean, I guess one of the things that was interesting, and this is from an outsider, and I mean, Florida is one of the few state parties that I hear things about nationally for whatever reasons. You know, from Invictus on. You know, I don't hear stuff coming out of other state parties. So I mean, I guess you could say
No, understood, and that's where I said that both Invictus and Paul did a horrible job. PR wise for the Libertarian Party here in Florida, at least.
But when chatting with Ryan, I mean, one of the things that was strange to me, and again, this is from an outsider, but some of the links that he had talking about Paul, trying to bring Paul down, was a little bit conspiracy theory-esque, to be pretty nice about it, and
very generous you to say it that way.
Yeah. I mean, but on the point where you could consider it harassment as well, in my opinion, you know, and could that? I guess you were talking before about folks about harassment being some issues with Wentz. What's going on with Ryan and how that's going, or is it fair game because both of them are taking shots at each other? Like, how's
well, I'll say something. When you decide to run for office, for whatever office that is, whether it's chairman of a political party or anything within a political party or anything within government, you're opening yourself up to criticism, a lot of criticism that you might not have otherwise. If somebody was to say those things about a private individual, it'd be a lot different because these are public individuals. They represent people now. So they open the lines of communication to much harder judgments. Personally, I think it's childish, and I said it multiple times. When we focus more on insulting each other than the things we could work on together, then they're beating us without even doing anything to us, kind of thing, you know. I think that our biggest hurdle right now is working with each other. And back to your case, so we'll go to Ryan and Stanton. How do we libertarians believe that we're going to have an opportunity of becoming something greater, a senator, a congressman, a governor, and work with others? We're going to have to work with other political parties, yet we can't even work with ourselves. You're going to work with Republicans, at least in the mindset that I have to push the Libertarian Party forward. When a libertarian becomes elected into a higher office, you're going to have to work with very controversial people. So you're going to let your ego get in front of your principles of liberty? That's the question I like to ask myself in regards to whether it's fighting somebody or whatever it is it going to advance the cause of liberty? That's up to them to decide. I care none about it. I don't care about Paul's claims against Ryan. I don't care about Ryan's claims against Paul. I do care when it becomes something else, when it starts involving other people and claiming that the work that we're doing within the party is for other purposes than what we're actually here for. That's when it upset me. I don't care about personal issues. I get called so many things so many times. I care when people get in the way of of the work that I'm doing within the party.
I mean, would you care if you know what Paul's saying would be true? Because to me, as a leader, you'd be representing your party essentially.
Mm-hmm.
You are a representation of that, and if you have some kind of, and again, this would be a claim. I'm not saying it's true or not, but if it is true that that you know Ryan Ramsey is ethnocentric and has issues with that and kind of on this white genocide stuff. Um,
Well, it's a little difficult for me to believe that for lots of the work that he's done, and also the fact that the guy endorsed me. Okay, there was a white
Yeah,
guy in the
man.
race too.
yeah,
They could have endorsed the white guy if
Sure.
that's the point. I don't think it's a valid claim, and like you said, it's a claim. It's somebody's accusing something. I can't remove Ryan Ramsey, and I can't remove Paul Stanton from the executive committee because they were voted in by the delegates. The delegates ultimately chose. I could try and quiet down things as much as I can within the power of the chair. But ultimately, I want to empower people. I don't want to take away power from people. If they are doing a good job in advancing things that have brought us three together on this call, then I don't have a problem with them. I don't care about their religion. I don't care about any of those personal things. That's completely on them.
So it does affect the way one does outreach, though, right? So in what ways, what are the arguments that you and that the people that you work with are using to do the outreach to bring people into the Libertarian Party? You mentioned you had 27 new candidates.
Absolutely.
What was it that brought them in? Was it what were the policy positions of the Libertarian Party that brought them in?
Well, everybody comes in for different reasons. I came into the Libertarian Party in 2008. I was actually 13 years old watching Ron Paul campaigning and things like that. I used to debate my teachers. 2012, I campaigned a bit for Ron Paul, slapping stickers as well throughout the school in my high school senior year. And then 2013, a year after I ran for city council, I was the youngest person to do it. So I got motivated by what is Ron Paul, what was his foreign policy, what was that kind of thing. But what got me into the party was actually a forum created by Wes Benedict, the executive director of the National Party, which said, have you ever considered running for office, or would you ever consider doing so? And from there is where I started getting introduced to the Libertarian Party of Miami-Dade, from there the Libertarian Party of Florida, and so on. So outreach that we've done, what I do, I'm going to share my secret formula with you guys if you guys want to do it too. You find all of the vacant positions throughout the state that you're in. So what ends up happening is, over time, Republicans and Democrats have focused on larger races, But in order for us to battle these multi-million-dollar machines, we have to create a political party worthy to battle them. So what we do is that we find those vacant seats, and then we see if we have any libertarians in that area. What we do then is that we write a letter, or we find their phone number or an email or whatever it is, and we reach out to them, and then we ask them if they'd consider running for office. In the state party, at least in the power that I have, I've made it so that the counties could decide if they like the candidate, or if they don't like the candidate, they can ask for the kind of support that they want from the state of Florida. So if I recruit somebody who just so happens to be this crazy lunatic that society does not agree with at the moment, the county would then have the ability to decide if they want to continue helping that candidate or not. So what we do is more of an outreach on finding candidates in those local areas, handing them to their affiliates, and letting their affiliates grow them into leaders within their community. How crazy is it to have one of these people become elected officials with a salary unopposed, with the ability to impact their community immediately? Imagine having one of these guys knocking on your door and saying, or these women and knocking on your door and saying, hey, I'm a libertarian, I represent you, how can we work together? Or, hey, this is going on in your city. Those people then build rapport, those people then involve themselves within the community, and from there, that's where they'll go up a little more to city council, then they'll go to mayor, then they'll go to Congress, and so on, and the party will grow with them.
So and I don't mean to belabor the same point. I'm interested only because you talked about how you get interested in the drama when it starts affecting what it is that you're doing. And there's a lot of evidence showing that on both sides, right? There's anecdotal evidence on both sides, and some hard evidence, at least on one side, that people are leaving the Libertarian Party of Florida due specifically to these sorts of elements. The particular one is this white nationalist element, and then there are some anecdotal stories that I've seen just through the email chains and whatnot about Paul Stanton, people not joining because of Paul Stanton and what they're calling his theatrics. And I'm curious about that. You seem to take a very laissez-faire approach to this, and that strikes me as maybe a bit cavalier, or maybe a bit. I don't mean to be insulting, but it strikes me as maybe a bit. Being honest. Yeah, it just strikes me as maybe playing a bit fast and loose with the outreach.
Well, like I said previously, I'm a sales manager for 2 Marriott properties. I'm a numbers guy. Have you guys seen the numbers in the last year? How many libertarians became registered?
You guys are coming up and you're doing a good job, and I don't dispute that, and I don't think anyone does. What you're doing to grow the party on a just pure numbers, raw numbers, is great. The concern, I believe, is who it is that's coming into the Libertarian Party. The sorts of individuals that are coming in. I mean, do these individuals accept the non-aggression principle? Do they accept the statement of principles? And I mean,
well, I'll challenge you on that.
Yeah.
What political party do you know in the Department of Elections has a questionnaire to fill out whether they fill in with the party or not? I don't think any political party has that right now. You know, when somebody goes to register as a Republican or a Democrat, an independent, Green Party, whatever it is, they could register regardless of their beliefs. Whether they're libertarians or not, they could register as libertarians. Ultimately, I think that party registration going up is a good sign for the Libertarian Party. I think as much heat as Gary Johnson has gotten, he has done a good job in regards to promoting somewhat what the libertarian message is and growing our numbers, at least here in the state of Florida. We benefited from that for sure. I feel like this is a bit more of a magnifying glass at the moment. You know, this has been about 2 months since my term as chair. I've been called a Nazi. I've been called a racist. I've been called a white supremacist. I've been called so many things that have nothing to do with who I am or my core value of what I believe in. But it's a part of it. It's a part of it. And for you guys, it makes sense to pick up on those things, to talk about them. But for people like me, it's more of a distraction in the sense that there's so much work that's being done besides the crickets chirping.
Do you think that it's being overblown to folks like us and that niche libertarian media stuff nationally, or is it being talked about a lot in Florida as well?
I spoke to Nick Sarwark and Wes Benedict about this, and they started cracking up. You know, how many times do others get called so many names when they're in the spotlight? You know, it's always going to happen. You're setting yourself up for scrutiny. Is it a big deal? No. Back to the numbers. You know, the numbers don't lie. We've had more elected officials than we've had in previous years. We have more registered libertarians. We're having more money in the bank. It's honestly just childish nonsense, in my opinion.
I don't know. I got to push back on that, and only because I recognize that it's possibly just having a microscope view on just on just a microcosm. I can understand that, but you've got individuals who are publicly saying that they're leaving the Libertarian Party of Florida for this specific reason.
I've had people leave the Libertarian Party because of me.
Sure.
You know, what can I do about that? What people will leave for different reasons. Ultimately, I'll tell you something. My significant other is somebody who I disagreed with in the presidential election. My parents, on the other hand, are somebody who I disagreed with on a completely different scale. So if you put it that way, it's a little difficult to make everybody happy. Okay, it's impossible for you to please every single person with your actions, with your words, with anything. So there's not much in that sense. People will leave for whatever reason.
Kind of shift gears here. Still going to talk a little bit about nationalism, but not of the white variety.
Sure.
And I'm just curious. There are what seem to be a significant amount, maybe significant is not the right word, but at least a vocal minority in the Libertarian Party of Florida, which subscribes to sort of a constitutional nationalism. And I'm wondering, do you subscribe to that same sort of philosophy?
I don't think I've liked any of those Facebook pages or any of that sort of stuff. I mean, if you're asking me what my libertarian philosophy is, I think we should all have the same opportunity. I think that everyone should be free to do as they please with their body, with their mind, as they want to, as long as they don't hurt anybody, with their business, with their property, with their home, with whatever it is they want to do. I don't think that we should be picking and choosing who wins and who loses. My opinion.
Sure, and this isn't a gotcha question or anything like. None of this is meant to trap you in any way. I asked because I think that there are attendant policy positions that come along with nationalism. Again, not talking about white nationalism, but just
can you just, so that those who are watching, can you elaborate a little more on?
Sure. So nationalism, it subscribes to the opinion that a nation itself needs to protect its heritage, its culture, its language, and it, in my opinion, it rests on a collectivization, right? It's not an individualist philosophy. It's a collective philosophy. The reason that the military exists is to protect the nation. The reason that we have border patrol and immigration standards is to protect our national interests rather than to protect the individual property rights, individual rights of any single person. And the reason I ask that is because there seems to be that is at least a vocal minority in the Libertarian Party of Florida, and I'm just curious if you subscribe to nationalism, or if you prefer more of a globalist sort of outlook on it, where there's more open borders and more freedom of movement.
I definitely agree a lot more with the freedom to travel, open borders. I am a product of Cuban parents. They fled tyranny in Cuba, an oppressive government, a government that would murder people for having different beliefs than them. I'm all for helping others in the sense of giving them an opportunity to make something from themselves. In regards to everything else within the country, within anything, I don't necessarily like to put labels on myself. I think that we as humans are so much more than just a label. I think that a label will categorize us into something sometimes that we might not be. I could say right now I'm a libertarian, and somebody who probably that hasn't watched this show right now might think, oh, he's a white supremacist. I think that labels are all subject to interpretation. What I will say is that everything that I have done in regards to the work in Miami-Dade and throughout the state of Florida has been to increase opportunity, has been to increase both personal and professional growth within, our everyday life. So that's really what we're working on. Human flourishment is what we're pushing for in the Libertarian Party here in Florida.
Okay. And you had talked about, you said that there were a few other positive things that you wanted to talk about. Talk a little bit about those. What was I think it was called the First Step Initiative, is what you're looking at?
Absolutely. First Step was an operation where we spoke to our affiliates throughout the state, different county affiliates, and we gave them the opportunity to work together in regards to finding candidates. The past 2 months, we've had 27 candidates. A lot of them are unopposed at the moment. This is going to be for the 2017 election. Our goal is to have 100 elected libertarians by 2021. I have a feeling we're going to blow that number out of the water. We have many people throughout the states that are ready to start working on these things. A few other things that we're going to be working on as well is going to be community involvement. We want to grow the Libertarian Party, but we need to show that we are different than the other parties, where if we are talking about limited government and we actually do it, who's going to be there to help others? And that's where we're working with different organizations to discuss homelessness, to discuss different kinds of policies that would be able to benefit homelessness as well in different cities. So that's pretty much what we're focusing on: limiting government and involving ourselves in our community, and knowing each other better.
So, as a state chair, you've got a lot of county folks under you, but a lot of people typically in the Libertarian Party, at least here in Tennessee, a lot of folks are new, and they're in leadership positions. They're super great, but also it's their first time taking a role like this. Like, what are your strategies to help them succeed at a county level?
I think education is a really important thing, and knowing the different resources that you have. What's going to work in Miami is not going to work in the Panhandle, and what's going to work in Orange County is not going to work in Pinellas. Or it can. There's different things. It's a bunch of small science labs that you could find things. Things that work and things that don't. Ultimately, what you do need to have is clear communication. I think that education and communication are the two priorities in being able to share the abundance of knowledge throughout the counties. And it comes with putting people in place to be able to facilitate those things. People such as our directors at large, which are doing a really good job in the state of Florida. There's 3 of them at the moment, and one in specific, Greg Peel, has been a superstar in that sense. Allison Foxall as well. Russ Wood has been focusing on great things as well. And that's ultimately where it's at throughout our communications, throughout our executive committee, our regional representatives, sharing knowledge with each other, making information more accessible, and really hearing each other out. If you sit down with people and you actually give them the time of day, you'll realize that you have more in common with them than you think. And I think that's something that we need to put. We need, the Libertarian Party of Florida doesn't have a white nationalist problem. What it has is an ego problem, where people are letting their egos get in the way of personal growth and the ability of moving things forward. So that's what we're working on now.
Whose ego is it?
You decide that.
No. I'm not there. I'm not the one in. I'm not the one actually in the trenches, right? So
I won't discuss any names.
That's fair.
I think that a lot of the leadership within the Libertarian Party knows exactly what I'm talking about. Right now, you guys are kind of scratching the surface and a little bit of what's going on. Give it another year and a half, and all of this won't matter anymore. You'll see the positive results for sure.
That's fair. I like I said, I don't want to belabor the point, but just since you brought it back, that it's not a problem. When you say it that way, I have to ask: is it there at all? I mean, if you that seems to be a sort of an ideology that if it's seen, you should nip it in the bud immediately. That's not a libertarian ideal in any way, right? Now, one can say it's not a problem in the Libertarian Party, or it's not a problem in the Libertarian Party of Florida, but if perception is reality, it most certainly is, right? Now, maybe perception is not reality. Maybe it's the case
everything's perception for sure, which is why I go back to the work, back to the results, back to the numbers. What do the results say? Have you seen anything that has come out of the Libertarian Party of Florida in regards to policy work that we're working on, or people that we're trying to get elected that have done something like that our policies are fighting for white nationalism? No, you're not going to find it either. What you are going to find is we're working with State Representative Jose Javier Rodriguez, a Democrat, to fight CDDs, to stop community development districts, to stop bureaucracy. You're going to see so many things along those lines. I have not encountered the white supremacy stuff that you're talking about. They elected me. I can't say that. And, the same person you guys are talking about as a white supremacist claims by other people is somebody who endorsed me over so many other people in the race. It doesn't make any sense to me.
I mean, the interesting thing, though, is that, again, who has gotten the Libertarian Party of Florida more visibility nationally, and is that good visibility, being Augustus Invictus with Vice and all the coverage that he's got with all these different national media outlets? No one else has done that.
Crazy to me. Okay, that's crazy to me, by the way. The attention that it gets. Now, what does the attention stem from? How I've been successful within the media. Speaking to Pete tomorrow, I've got an interview on television. You guys are welcome to join America TV. It's going to be on at 6:30. It's going to be in Spanish. What I see from news stations, what I see from podcasts, is that they need to find what is relevant, what is new, what is trendy, what is something that I could catch your attention with. And what's more attention-grabbing than a blood-drinking, goat-sucking, whatever it is, Augustus Invictus?
Sure.
And what's going to be more enticing than that is going to be the savior that comes to go against them, right? That comes to save the day. It's just news, man. It's ratings. It's something that you guys, I'm 100% sure, know a lot about.
Quick question. So, are you happy that it's over with him?
Hell yeah. I can't wait for it to be over with Paul too.
Okay, so that's the only reason I bring it back is you keep coming back, and it seems to me that there's blame being placed on Paul, which after just an objective accounting of the evidence, I've read a lot over this last weekend and these last few days. Yeah, I've been doing a lot of
keyboard warriors. Yeah,
dude. Well, and that's the other thing. I mean, it's not just keyboard warriors. A lot of the people that are involved in this situation are prolific writers, and they come out with a lot of content that has a lot of information to dig through. And particularly Ramsey, he's a prolific writer.
Writes a lot for sure.
Yeah, and I've read a lot of his stuff.
I haven't. I cannot read as much as he writes.
He writes a lot. I mean, he must churn it out every night. So I've read a lot of his stuff, and from what I'm seeing, there is a lot of blame placed on Paul Stanton that shouldn't be there. And because it doesn't seem as though he's doing anything other than being something like a whistleblower. Now, I use that term. I don't mean to suggest that I either agree or disagree with him, but that's the position that he's taking, right? And that's the position that a lot of his supporters see him as. And it's not as though his supporters are incredibly small in number. He has a decent-sized support within the Libertarian Party of Florida who are seeing the same things that he is, who are not saying the same things he is because this is from their own.
About perception, that's all perception right now. Your perception is your reality. The reality is that that's non-existent. You'll have a few people comment. You'll have a few people say things here and there. Everybody wants to give their input. Everybody wants to feel valuable. And that's ultimately where it is. He's preaching to the choir, a base that he's created, not for being Paul Stanton, but for not being Augustus Invictus. So he's created that base. He continues to try and remain relevant by speaking of the same things that don't exist anymore. The election ended last year. He won by 76%. Get over it already. It's not there anymore. It doesn't exist, man.
And so, do you think, what is the role of the state party in dealing with somebody like Augustus Invictus? Is it, I mean, and you can enlighten me on kind of how that happened. Was it just Augustus felt unwelcome? I've read a little bit, but I'd like to hear your perception on that. And, how does that work with other folks that you think are causing friction and some other, other issues like kind of what we're talking about right now?
Yeah. Well, down in Miami, what we did to not have any sort of alienation from candidates or getting close to any candidates is that we decided in Miami that we weren't going to support any candidates until after the primary. So what does that mean? That means Miami-Dade would have never endorsed Paul or Augustus Invictus. They would have waited for it to play out and ultimately support the nominee the same way that they did for Gary Johnson, the same way that they did for Gary Johnson in 2012, things like that, and so on. If they would have played it out that way, we still wouldn't have had the Augustus problem. I feel like so many people tried to take a position when no position was needed to be taken. All they needed to do was leave it to the will of the voters, and if you agree with the will of the voters and continue to do the work that you think this political party represents. But if the voters go against what you believe in, and that same freedom that you had to come into the party, you've got the same freedom to leave. And I urge everyone that if they feel that somebody was elected that they do not represent or does not represent them, they have every right to leave the party. And I think we'd be in better shape. I'm not saying for people leaving, but in the process of choosing who represents the party and what news and things come out of it.
So essentially you're just saying, like, at least for the Augustus situation, that he was just like, all right, I don't feel very supported, or this is not my place right now, and I'm going to move to the Republican Party where I could better serve? Or was there actual pressure from leadership and conversations from that? Like, was it a personal thing for Augustus, or was he pressured into leaving?
I won't elaborate on my private conversations in that sense.
Sure.
But what I will say is that before he was a libertarian, he also was a Democrat and he also was a Republican. And the way that I look at political parties, I do align myself with the libertarian values. I do align myself with those beliefs, and I've proved it with my results. But political parties are tools. Okay, just like people are within politics, political parties are as well. Whether you're a Republican, a Democrat, a Libertarian, or whatever it is, if you know how to use the party, it could advance your personal agenda limitlessly. You could have a Republican disguised as a Democrat. You could have a independent undercover as a Republican. It's a tool, really. Political parties are tools. It doesn't matter to me what political party Augustus is, because Augustus doesn't matter to me. It doesn't matter to me what political party Paul Stanton or anybody else is. Ultimately, whoever is in my political party and I'm leading it, the work that I want to do will get done. And if it doesn't, then with the power of the chair, since I am leading the party, then I'll make sure that those things do not become reality. If they don't align with libertarian values, then I will not let them see the day.
What do you think about the Republican Liberty Caucus and individuals who say that the best tool for advancing liberty is through the Republican Liberty Caucus? Why choose? Sure.
Back to your perception. Their lives have led them to believe that. I personally do think that the Republican Party and the Democratic Party are still the most powerful parties in the country. I do think that libertarians are on the rise. We are the third largest political party. We do have, in my opinion, the best intentions for our society at the moment. But I'm in it for the long haul. I'm seeing the bigger picture. I'm not seeing the win now in the moment kind of thing. I've been offered multiple times to run as a Democrat, $150,000 to run as a state senator in an easily winnable race, majority Democrat. And I've also been offered to run as a Republican. But my work is a lot more important to me personally than it is professionally, and that's why I'm working on what I'm doing. I was elected as chairman at the age of 23. I'm 23 right now. I'm the youngest person to do it. And I feel that it's a good investment, in my opinion, to do it within the Libertarian Party and advance our morals instead of any personal agendas, for sure.
There's something interesting in the state of Florida that I don't see and maybe it is in other states, but I haven't seen it, and that's NPA. That's no particular affiliation. Is that right?
No party affiliation, right?
No party. No party affiliation. Does that having that extra little twist into the partisan politics make it any more difficult or easier for libertarians to become elected or to make?
Well,
gains?
you'll have the back to the libertarians debating libertarians. Who's more libertarian, the one within the Libertarian Party or the one that no party judges them, or no party? That's the most libertarian, of course. Mm-hmm. It's a tool. Back to what I was saying, as it being a tool. But a lot of small races within the states are no parties are involved. It's a nonpartisan races where they can have the county affiliates or the state help them out. But a lot of those races are not affiliated with any party.
Cool. Gotcha. How many candidates do you have? You said you recruited 27. Do you have any candidates running for national or state level office, governor office?
For state,
I know you have Randy Wiseman.
We've got
Randy Wiseman's running for governor.
Right. We have two other people that are interested in running in the governor's race as well. I'm not going to say anything about them until they say it themselves. Back to the primaries. This is something that I talked about even with Randy. I respect Randy tremendously. He lived in the city that I live in, Hialeah, and I get along with him well. But the same principles, as much as I liked him and as much as I disliked the senatorial candidates, I'd like to let the process play out first. And there's still two more candidates that I'm actually looking forward to meeting. And like I said, whether it's Randy, whether it's somebody else, back when I ran for chair, if somebody who would have been better than me, somebody who could raise millions of dollars, or I would have stepped out of the way, and I would have let that play out. But if Randy's the guy, whoever the person is going to get supported tremendously by the LPF. But we got Randy for now. We've got two other people that are potentially going to run for governor of Florida. And at the moment, there's one senatorial candidate.
Who's the senator candidate?
Joe Nguyen. Joe went.
Joe went. That's right. Just what I thought he was running. I thought he was running for state senate. I apologize.
I believe it's Senate.
Well, that's my fault. I didn't do good enough research. I thought he was running for state senate.
So how was it? How was it to be a 23-year-old and be the youngest person essentially elected as a state chair? And like, do you think that was a part of the reason that a fresh perspective was something that was attractive to people? And what set you apart from other folks running, or what? Yeah, elaborate on that a little bit.
For me, it's great. I think the second youngest person to do it was Nick Sarwark. So we'll see where we go from there. As for why they elected me, for multiple reasons. I reached out to you guys. I have no problem with you guys. Whatever claims anybody else is doing, I'm the kind of person where I shake everybody's hand. Just like I shook Augustus's hand, I shook Paul's hand, I'll shake Ryan's hand, I'll shake anybody's hand. I respect you as a human being, regardless of what value you have to others or what value you have to anything, because that's the way that I was raised. I was raised to not judge people. I was raised to accept those, but I was also raised to, grab the bull by the horns. And I think that's something that people appreciated and why I was voted in.
So you're probably the unity. Unity was a big piece for you?
Well, it's worked. Some people, of course, are going to be upset by the election. I get along well with the former chair and the person that ran against me. I get along well with the EC members. Never will you find someone who will say that I disrespected them in any negative, that I was cursing at them or anything like that. That's not the way that I like to conduct business. That's not the way that I like to conduct myself. Of course, you'll have a little fun here and there. I have some fun with Paul all the time when he throws out these nonsense claims online. But as for everything else, I keep it professional. This is a political party. This is, if we want to be taken seriously, we have to take ourselves seriously. And I think that that's something that really resonated with the delegates, and they elected me to represent them. I have positive relationships with the media, English and Spanish. I've raised thousands of dollars. I've gotten people elected, and they want that in the state of Florida for sure.
Yeah, congrats, man.
Thanks.
I don't have anything. I don't have any other questions. I think we are going to end this on something of a disagreement. I don't know that what Paul is kind of bringing attention to. I don't know that it's unserious, right? And I think that's maybe the second time that you said that. And I think I disagree with you on that. There seems to be some seriousness to what Paul's saying. It doesn't seem to me, and I could be wrong, but he doesn't strike me as the type of dude that's doing this just for attention. I look forward to talking with Ryan. He and I have had a good email exchange, and he's committed to coming on. I look forward to that. I appreciate you coming on. I hope there's no.
I will say this about Ryan and Paul.
Yeah.
Ryan Ramsey went to Paul's meeting, I believe it was, in Volusia, and he tried to bury the hatchet. He went up to Paul and he was like, "Hey, let's work things out. Let's work on things together and all this stuff." Paul refused to. Not that I think that it's a positive or a negative thing, but somebody who's willing and open enough to come and speak to you and talk to you about
Sure.
your communication, I think is a positive thing. As for Paul Stanton, I wish him the best in anything that he becomes a part of. But if it's true what he claims, and he's not playing savior and he's not playing this for image, why would he want to be a part of an organization that he feels that way about?
Because he believes in the Libertarian Party principles and he wants the Libertarian Party to be as good as it can be, would
Sure.
be my suggestion.
Absolutely. And I believe in the same things that you just described right now.
Mm-hmm.
But when those things stop, because they're not anymore what you believe them to be, then why do you continue to be a part of that? We just talked about MPA, no party affiliation.
Mm-hmm.
That's more libertarian than the libertarian label itself. So I don't necessarily think that it's to a point where, like I said, it's politics again. It's the ego. It's the I can do this, so I'm gonna do it to attract as much attention as I can because I can. not because there's anything positive. There's nothing positive happening from his post. That same night that he was speaking about Ryan Ramsey and all of this stuff, we appointed Maria Alexandra Garcia, which is a woman chair that was elected as a libertarian in the city of Doral as vice president of her community development district. Okay, where was that news? Where was the news of other libertarians that we appointed? On the contrary, it was just something negative. It wasn't something to benefit the party. Those same principles and ideas that you say that he believes in. It was just throwing dirt on one specific person, and that specific person, the reason why it was having dirt thrown at them was because they associated themselves with their former competition in the Senate race. So it's a personal thing. But then again, you've got him working with Augustus's former campaign chair, so it doesn't. It's all politics.
Yeah, and that seems to suggest to me that Paul is willing to bury the hatchet with certain individuals and for certain reasons. I was unaware of the personal interaction that Ramsey and Stanton had at whatever meeting. My question would be why, right? Why didn't you accept not to bury the hatchet? And again, I didn't get to ask that question to Paul. Being as charitable as I possibly can, my assumption is because he wants to stand on principle and rejects that Ramsey's open hand is a genuine offer of burying the hatchet. You know what I mean? That'd be my most charitable assumption of the man. But again, I haven't gotten
nice.
to.
That's really nice of you.
Sure, I didn't get to ask Paul that question. I'd like to. I'll probably text him. I'll get him on Facebook or an email. And I do look forward to talking to Ryan Ramsey. I don't like this kind of new way that people communicate where we'll get someone on a podcast and then they'll get to make all these charges. And I'm like, shit, I gotta call these. You know what I mean? It's like, fuck, I gotta call all these people. I gotta get them on. So because I don't want to just badmouth people without giving them a chance some airtime.
I was never reached out to after Paul spoke. I reached out to you guys.
Yeah, well, the day after Paul spoke, Ramsey reached out to us, and as soon as I got the email, I was like, "Hell yeah, man! Let's get you on."
Of course.
And then I think I don't know what went on behind the scenes, but I think that you and Ryan had a conversation and asked to come on before.
Well, I had written to you guys first, and I constantly get emails and messages and things that I cannot keep up with. But it just so happened that I was shopping for shoes, and I get a message from Ryan on my Facebook, and he's telling me all of these crazy posts about people and their personal lives that are being put out online. And addresses and things like that, a bunch of crazy nonsense. And then I told him, oh, that's cool that you sent me that. I actually reached out to the Dankertarians and going to their show next Wednesday. He's like, oh, that's awesome. I reached out to them too. And I told him that I would like to speak as spokesperson first before he spoke, and he completely understood and he was cool with it.
Yeah, and thanks so much for actually taking the time to sit here with us. I know watching that other video, there's probably some kind of perception on how things would go, but I appreciate it, and
yeah, absolutely, yeah, always open to talk, always open to meet new people. No ego, just how can we help each other? How can we advance both of our the reasons why we're here, which is to limit government and maximize our liberties for sure.
Indeed. So I'd like to end on a positive note. Tell me a little bit about what you're doing. I know you spoke a little about the something coming up in August where you're going to be helping with some volunteerism with the homeless population. What else is going on in the Libertarian Party of Florida? What you're plugging right now?
Well, my duty as chair is going to be first to go and but learn a little more about the systems that they use and how they go about integrating these systems into the homeless communities. The person I'm going to be working with is a former candidate for Senate. He was somebody who I looked up to a lot when I ran for office. He was a libertarian at one point. Now he's running an organization, a catering business where they feed 100 hot meals. I think it's every Sunday or every 2 Sundays or something like that. That's at a small scale. I wanted to see something at a bigger scale, statewide. So what I want to see, back to how we talked about science labs, I want to go learn their process and how they are successful in what they do, and then implement that throughout the state. As in, you're not going to need state help, to advance in our society. You're not going to need state help to have people care about you. We care about you regardless of skin color, regardless of political affiliation or religion or anything. We're here for you.
Yeah, man. Well, send us some some pictures and some stuff going on. We love to promote the things that's going on that it's positive.
Absolutely.
And we're trying to, like I said, I'm super passionate about being more active in communities and the Libertarian Party. At least in some of the areas that I'm at, I know we get so wrapped up around ballot access and all these other things that I think we miss out sometimes on what it really means and what that actually looks like, and using
Absolutely.
that as an example. So we'd love to be able to connect with that.
Yeah, for sure. I'll keep you guys posted. I'm taking my camera. I'll record everything and let you guys know.
Sounds great. Marcus Miralles from the Libertarian Party of Florida, Chairman, thank you so much for joining us on the
Thank you, guys.
Dankertarians. All right,
appreciate
talk to you
that.
soon, sir.
Thanks for your time.
We'll see you.
Cheers.